Hello everyone. Since I mentioned V for Vendetta in my channel introduction, I thought I would take a philosophical look at the film. I won't be reviewing the film or retelling any parts of the story though, and it won't be an in-depth analysis either. I'll just be talking about some of the things that people say in the film. It will mainly be quotes from V himself, because V is the main character in the film, and he has a lot to say. V for Vendetta is a Hollywood movie, but it's a really thoughtful one. The main philosophical question it poses is, when is it acceptable to use violence to further your goals? In a civilized society, it never is. But the film makes it very clear that violence may be justified in V's case. The film is set in the near future. Britain has been taken over by a fascist government, and they have now ruled Britain for a number of years. V is the main protagonist in the story, although he isn't the only one that wants to change the situation. He was detained and experimented on by the government, but he managed to escape. However, the experiments transformed him physically, and perhaps mentally too, so that he gained superhuman speed, intelligence and toughness. While he was escaping, he was burned and horribly disfigured, and he's been hiding somewhere in London planning his revenge. To hide his disfigurement, he always wears black clothing, black gloves and a white Guy Fawkes mask. Sometimes he wears a black hat too. One last thing before I start. I won't be covering everything that's in the film, and that's because I don't want to spoil it too much, and there are parts that I've deliberately left out. If you want every bit of philosophy and wisdom from the film, you're just going to have to watch it. You won't regret that. Let's start with some general observations about the themes of the film. The government has total control over the media, and members of the government ensure that the people only hear what the government wants them to hear. The idea is explained succinctly by Roger Dascombe, who is the chief executive of the British television network. This is the BTN. Our job is to report the news, not fabricate it. That's the government's job. The media also promotes religion as one way of controlling the people. Those in power rule because God has judged them fit to rule. It's faith and order above everything else. However, in V's eyes, justice has been replaced by an imposter. One of his motives is to restore justice and freedom. Coincidence is mentioned a few times in the film. V doesn't believe in it, and neither does Eric Finch. I find that an interesting point. In real life, are we like the characters in a story too? Is our story already written, or do we write it ourselves? It's always been a puzzle to me, and I've always thought that the word consciousness describes the awareness of what you are and of what you are doing, but not necessarily the control over what you are doing. I very much like a quote from Heather Nova on this topic. In one of her songs, she says that life is only halfway in our hands. Another theme in the film is that chaos and order are opposing forces. Consequently, the government must completely oppress its citizens by all means necessary in order to maintain control. The film's also about terrorism. V is considered a terrorist by the government, but the police officers investigating are not so sure. Right there! What's he thinking? Is he considering leaving her after she saved him? He's a terrorist. You can't expect him to act like you or me. Some part of him's human, and for better or worse, she's stuck with him. V also chips in. He says, violence can be used for good. What are you talking about? Justice. I want to talk about individual quotes too. Some of these are about fundamental concepts. In my Wishmaster retelling, I talked about fundamental concepts a lot. V for Vendetta introduces us to a few more. V on fate. What does that mean? It means that I, like God, do not play with dice and do not believe in coincidence. I wonder if the viewers believe in fate. Specifically, do you? Leave a comment below to let me know. V on power and truth. Why? Because while the truncheon may be used in lieu of conversation, words will always retain their power. Words offer the means to meaning, and, for those who will listen, the enunciation of truth. V on reason and fear. I know you were afraid. Who wouldn't be? War, terror, disease. There were a myriad of problems which conspired to corrupt your reason and rob you of your common sense. Fear got the best of you. V on hope. More than 400 years ago, a great citizen wished to embed the 5th of November forever in our memory. His hope was to remind the world that fairness, justice, and freedom are more than words. They are perspectives. V on certainty, or rather change. There's no certainty, only opportunity. V on government. People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people. On a lighter note, V on dancing. A revolution without dancing is a revolution not worth having. On a darker note, Evie on revenge. But it made me feel sorry for Mercedes. Why? Because he cared more about revenge than he did about her. I went and Googled and I found out that Wikipedia has a whole page about revenge. Delia Surridge and V on meaning. Is it meaningless to apologise? Never. Evie on truth and lies. My father was a writer. You would have liked him. He used to say artists use lies to tell the truth, while politicians use them to cover the truth up. Evie and Gordon Dietrich on humour. Is everything a joke to you? Only the things that matter. Valerie on integrity. Our integrity sells for so little, but it is all we really have. It is the very last inch of us. But within that inch, we are free. Valerie on hate. I still don't understand it. Why they hate us so much. Adam Sutler on chaos. I want this country to realise that we stand on the edge of oblivion. I want every man, woman and child to understand how close we are to chaos. William Rookwood on fear. But the end result, the true genius of the plan, was the fear. Fear became the ultimate tool of this government. There were also a couple of quotes that reminded me of Wishmaster. In a way, V is a little bit like a good gin. At one point, he says, "if you wish," which I noticed is subtly different from "as you wish." Is that a coincidence? I don't think so. Evie on wishing. I wish I believed that was possible, but every time I've seen this world change, it's always been for the worse. I wonder if that's because there was a race of evil jinn that were in charge of her world. Louis Prothero on wishing. I'll tell you what I wish. I wish I'd been there. I wish I'd had the chance for a face-to-face. Just one chance. That's all I'd need. Be careful what you wish for, Louis. V on duality. It's a basic principle of the universe that every action will create an equal and opposing reaction. V is talking about fighting fire with fire here, but maybe he could also be talking about other dualities, such as Ahura Mazda and Angramenu, or yin and yang, or even, and this is a new one that I haven't mentioned before, faith and curiosity, aka religion and science. In addition to the parts I deliberately left out, Evie makes a couple of very astute observations at the very end of the film. I was tempted to include them, but I haven't. So once again, you'll just have to watch it or re-watch it if you've forgotten what they were. Let me know what you think.